Today, I'm going to help you build your first One Piece deck. And yes, this video is going to be geared mainly towards people who have been collecting One Piece. Maybe you just think it's an interesting card game. Whatever it may be, this is for beginners specifically. So if I miss anything and you are an average One Piece player, or maybe you're a better than average One Piece player, and I miss anything in this video, let me know in the comments below so we can help a new community be found. We're trying to help new people get into One Piece every single day, doing deck profiles way too often. So if there's ever a deck you want to check out as you get more into the game, let me know in the comments down below of one of my videos. Like and subscribe if this video helps you make your first deck, and let's get into some rules about deck building in One Piece. It's usually pretty simple. You have a 50 card deck plus one leader, of course, and technically 10 Dawn cards, your Dawn cards being your energy that you can play out your characters. Now just know, before we start this, I'm not really going into ruling specifically. I'm not going into deep combos or helping you build specific decks, but I will have avenues of finding deck profiles at the end of the video if you're just looking to find deck profiles themselves. Or obviously you can always check out YouTubers because we make a lot of deck profiles for you guys. Anyways, you may only have 4 copies of a single card in your deck. That means 2 cards with different abilities. They can share the same name. I can run a deck of 50 Monkey D. Luffy's if I want to, as long as there's only 4 of a single copy of a specific card from a specific set. So like if it was OP12, which is the most recent set released, and it was the number 64 card in the set, I could run 4 of that and 4 of the 65th card even if they share the same name. They just have to have different abilities and card numbers. That does not mean you can run 4 alt arts and 4 regular. It is just for whether you are doing alt or regulars. You can only have 4 copies of a single card. You may only use cards that share your leader's colors. Example, obviously this Zoro in the top left is a green leader. If you play the game, you know that, and if you don't, you may not know that, which the color of the leader is signified in the bottom left of the card. Well, in that deck, you can only use cards that have the green color. And if you're ever confused, some cards look like different colors, you can always look in the bottom left of the card. Same thing with Luffy here, which is a dual color leader, which is why we used it as an example, because obviously it's a lot of people's favorite character, Gear 5, and it's a 2 color leader, so you can use both purple and black cards in your life. Now just note that if you are using dual color leaders, usually there is some kind of side effect because you're getting extra cards to pull from for your deck. This leader specifically has 4 life, which is mostly what happens, but sometimes there's other things depending on their power, etc, etc. That's a later problem, don't really worry about it. The idea is just to let you know, if you have a dual color leader, which there's only up to 2 colors on a leader at this moment, then you can use both card pools. Your deck must also follow the ban and restricted list, which will be linked down below. Yes, there is a ban list meaning there are certain cards you cannot play, and there are certain cards you cannot play with certain leaders in specific decks. This is done to keep the game fair and fun, because sometimes they can't get every, nasty combo that may come out. They can't stop that from happening. It's almost impossible, so they need to make a ban list to keep things safe. Well, what are we going to be covering in today's video? Number 1 is going to be choosing the correct leader for you. Number 2 is going to be color identity, which is going to help with number 1, obviously choosing the correct leader for you. How much counter do I need, which is very important to have counter so you can get out of large attacks from your opponent. We're going to look into some deck profiles for examples of how they run their deck list. So we're going to talk about how much counter is in different leaders, what the different builds are for different types of leaders, because some are more defensive, some are more aggressive. What are we needing to put into those kinds of decks, etc, etc. And then we're going to talk about building around the meta. When you go to your first locals to play your first event, or if you're playing against your friend who uses the same deck every time, how do you build around a specific deck with certain tech cards that help in those matchups? So we're going to look into a couple and give you a few short examples. Number 1 is going to be choosing the leader for you. Now there's a lot of different reasons to play a specific leader. You can play your favorite leader who has your favorite character. Obviously a lot of people love Zoro, so a lot of people have been playing Zoro recently because he's just a really cool character. It just happens to also be a strong leader. So if you're just an anime fan itself and you just want to play a character you like, you're more than welcome to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't always have to be a winner. You can always just have fun. And if you play a deck enough and you find the perfect build, you can definitely get wins. Just because your leader is not on the top 10 rated list does not mean you cannot win a locals with that leader. I've done it myself, many people do it, and that's the fun of deck building. Now, you can also play around your favorite playstyle. This being red, which is a cool mono leader, which is normally known for aggression, which we'll cover in a minute, but a more defensive build because this leader has a more defensive ability, giving one of your opponent's leaders or characters -1000 when they attack once per turn. So it's really nice to have Shanks. Shanks is very different for red, and it's cool to have a more control version of a color that maybe just fits your playstyle. Obviously, you can also just play a red aggro deck, you can go into a green mid-range deck, you can choose whatever you want based on the color identity that best fits you. Or you can be a player who really just likes to build around unexplored potential. As we mentioned earlier, maybe it's not your favorite character, maybe it's just a character you think is underutilized or a leader you think is underutilized. You may build around this. It's really fun to do, as honestly, what keeps YouTubers around is just deck building with certain leaders that don't really get the light of day, especially on a competitive scene. Sometimes it's fun just to be a theory crafter and deck builder, and that's totally okay. So those are going to be great ways to find your favorite leader, choosing based off of one of those. So to find your favorite leader, if you are going off of the second option, mainly just going off the type that you like, well, you need to find the color you enjoy most, and that's where we get into number 2 here. Red is going to be the first color that we cover, and I actually think it's the easiest color to get into the card game. It's very simple, straight, hit face, don't really worry about anything else, and control the pace of the game. You go wide on board, you do damage quickly. You're just trying to get them with one fell slash. This is another Zoro leader, and this is actually the first leader ever made. This is one of the simplest leaders to pick up in the One Piece card game. It has a simple effect of attaching a Dawn to give all of your characters plus 1000 power for that turn. Now it's only on your turn, so keep that in mind, but the idea is to go straight face, no other place, and just win the game as soon as possible. You also have those leaders like the Shanks that we mentioned that are more about power manipulation, lowering your opponent's character's power to KO or attack into them and really control board. You have both options, which is really nice with red, so you can kind of fit different kind of play styles with one simple color. Now, obviously there are other leaders that have red and other colors, but for now we're just talking about red specifically for this example when we get into these next few leaders, as I will give you examples of every single color of leaders you should look into if it's the color that best fits you. This is for people who really like to play cheap characters, rush in, and just win the game. So if that feels like you, here are 3 leaders you may want to pick up. I've mentioned before, obviously Zoro is very simple, Rayleigh is the OP12 leader of choice, and then Shanks if you're more into control. I like to throw a little curveball into each color so that it gives you something different. You're not just playing the most basic strategies. Zoro is very simple to build. It's from the first set ever created. It's actually relatively cheap to build as well, so that's why I find it to be a great beginner's deck. Silver's Rayleigh is from the newest set of One Piece, and I think that is a great way to get new players because it's the easiest product to find on shelves. So if you're looking to build a new set and maybe you've been opening boxes and you want to build this deck, well, Rayleigh is going to be one that you can easily find and also relatively cheap. I want to say probably a Rayleigh deck's $100 or less, and that's for a competitive one, as we're going to show you an example of a list that actually won the most recent regionals recently, so I hope this will help you a lot. Then you have Shanks. Shanks may just be your favorite character, or maybe it's a different style of red that you want to play. You want to be a control red player that has the ability to put on the aggression while controlling your opponent's board. Well, then Shanks is going to be for you. All different play styles with one simple color. It's really fun, and that's why I love the One Piece card game so much. Well, let's talk about blue. Blue is going to be a more control and draw based playstyle. It's more about tempo and resource management. It specializes in returning characters to hand, which basically is just called bouncing, as we're going to call it as we go throughout the video, drawing cards and slowing down your opponent. It often uses effects like bounce, as mentioned, draw, and search to keep advantage while disrupting enemy plays. The idea is mainly just to get a large hand size or control your opponent's hand size through very, very good cards like Charlotte Pudding. You don't see it on here, but you would know if you know. If you don't know, that's okay. You'll figure it out, I promise you. Well, the idea is to control board and tempo. If you're playing a character and I bounce it back to your hand while I'm putting a big character on the board, I'm gaining a lot of tempo. And so it's really about players who like outsmarting opponents with resource control and clever sequencing. You'll see that with all the leaders we're about to show you. The big thing is draw power, searching, and finding the right cards at the right opportunities. It's also about filtering, so drawing cards and then trashing cards to filter through your deck and find specific combo pieces. That would go similar with like a Doflamingo, Kuzan, or a Boa Hancock leader. Doflamingo was actually one of the best decks ever for the longest time. I mean, it was for a good while until they banned Jinbei, which is part of the bans and restricted list, but the leader still lives on. A lot of people have been getting into Doflamingo in the next set, and so it's a great one to pick up now and start learning. It's simple at a base level while also being very complicated the more you play it, as you have to get play lines and get ready to go into the next turn before the turn even starts. I think Doflamingo is a great starter deck to just learn and then also to build on and become better. And I feel similar with Kuzan. Kuzan being an OP12 leader of choice here, which we are going to have 4 of the OP12 leaders. 2 of them are not very meta relevant, so they will not make the list. Kuzan is simple, it's about control, it's a great character if you like watching the anime, so obviously it really just fits with what his strategy is trying to do. You build up a large hand size, you filter through the deck, and you're playing a lot of big navy bodies. It's really enjoyable. Now, Boa Hancock. Obviously, a lot of people like Boa Hancock. Nico Robin's better, but that's just me. Not the point here. This video is not about me. This leader is built very similar to Doflamingo at the moment, mainly just playing a more Warlords package, but it is getting new support in the future sets, and it's one that I think you should keep in mind as it's a very simple leader and one of the easiest leaders to really play. This does not get to a deeper level. It's really all about board control and drawing cards through controlling your opponent's board. So basically, if you bottom deck a character and you have 5 or less cards in your hand, you get to draw an additional card. So your opponent's losing tempo while you're gaining resources. It's very strong and very easy to pick up and play. Then we'll talk about green. Green is going to be more about mid-range and Dawn efficiency and manipulation. The idea of restanding Dawn in characters or freezing down Dawn in characters that your opponent can now not use them. It's efficient, flexible, and consistent. As I stated, it's about manipulation. Your idea here is about reactivating characters like with that Zoro leader we were looking at earlier and setting up for big tempo swings. It often has a strong mid-range threat, blockers, and ways to reactivate characters or leaders. And green balances offense and defense really well. I think it's very good for players who like to not play too fast and not too slow. The versatility in green is insane. So when you look at cards like this Draco Mihawk, you have to rest 8 Dawn, which is signified in the top left corner, to play the character, but then on play you set 4 of those Dawn back as active. You have the effect where you can't play a 7 cost or higher after this, but with putting out an 8 cost 8k body and then restanding 4 Dawn, you can attach those onto a leader or character to swing in aggressively, or you can play out more smaller characters to get a very strong board. Same thing with Carrot here, who freezes down a character of 7 or less, so if your opponent attacks in with a character, you can keep that character rested so they no longer have the ability to attack with it. The idea is control and mid-range. I think those are the best strategies going into green. The great examples of this are going to be Jewelry Bonnie, Roronoa Zoro, and Monkey D. Luffy. Monkey D. Luffy pops up a lot because obviously he's the main character of the show, so it's a great leader. If you see a Monkey D. Luffy leader, they're usually pretty good. Well, Bonnie is one of the most meta decks. I mean, honestly, all of these decks are really meta. Green is in a great place. I would say the only issue with green right now is the price of green. It is not cheap to play. None of the green decks are going to be cheap, but they are consistently good and topping. I think if you choose to play green, you'll be in a good place for a while. Yes, it might fall out of favor eventually, but with that, the deck always comes back. I mean, Bonnie's been around since OP07, OP12 Zoro has been making waves, Monkey D. Luffy has been one of the top 5 decks since the release of EBO2, so consistently topping decks, that's what you're going to find with green, consistency and strength. Now, I'm not a green player, I actually like yellow. A lot of people actually go to yellow because it's about life manipulation, high risk, and high reward. I think that's the best way to put it, because if you know about the 0 cost triggers and when it happens, you cry inside. Well, it's called life manipulation for a reason. Yellow thrives on messing with the life zone, either adding to it, flipping it face up, or using effects that trigger from life. Leaders like Katakuri and Enel, which we will cover in just a moment, make yellow feel like a gamble. Losing life can actually be an advantage. It creates unpredictable games and comeback potential. As you can see here with this Capone badge, at the bottom of the card it signifies trigger. Saying trigger, I mean, that's pretty simple to pick up. It says up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack during this turn. So let's say Beige is your last life and you pull it with your opponent only having 1 more attack on the board to finish you off. Well, if Beige is that last life, you stop that final attacker from killing you, and you basically just win the game. It changes the tempo so quickly, it can be really annoying to play against, but really fun to play with. You also have life manipulation, as in gaining life and trashing your opponent's life, 2 interesting concepts that fall really well into Charlotte Linlin here. Charlotte Linlin is played in Katakuri, which we're about to cover. It says add 1 card from the top of your deck to the top of your life, so you gain a life, and then trash up to 1 of the top of your opponent's life, which means it does not go to their hand, they get no triggers, it goes straight to the trash. Life is best for people, yellow is best for people who like high risk, high reward strategies and life control. Because not every deck that's in yellow is about high risk, high reward. I think it's just a fun way to put the list. These are my 3 yellow leaders of choice. I gave you a lot of different options here. Katakuri is going to be one of the easiest yellow decks to pick up with a simple leader effect. This is really the beginner's choice for any yellow player. I think it shows you how simple yellow can be while also being able to make your own choices and stack your own life. Being able to put that beige on the bottom means you are going to hit it. It's really good, and you get it in the time you need it, and it gives you information through the leader effect. It's also really easy just knowing that when you hit 10 Dawn, you just play down that Lin Lin and you kind of just trash your opponent's life and continue the game on. It's really fun. Then you have decks like Enel. Enel is very annoying because it is undying. When you hit 0 life, you may add 1 card from the top of your deck to your life, then discard 1 card from your hand. Now this is once per turn, but the idea is Enel never dies, because every time, even if you hit me to 0 life, if I gain 1 life, my leader ability is back on active. Enel is very annoying, playing a lot of triggers, and it's really fun to play. I mean, honestly, it is a very fun deck to play. If you pick this up and put it down, you're feeling good about it, and you're a little cocky too, I bet. And then, obviously, if you know the channel at all, Vegapunk is going to be the channel choice all day, every day. There's a lot of yellow decks and blue decks you could cover, and purple decks and green decks, and all these decks I could cover, but I can only do 3 on the screen at one time. Obviously, for blue, you could do Buggy, because I know Buggy players are like, why didn't you mention Buggy? Well, oh well, get over it. With Vegapunk here, this is the channel mascot. This is a very fun leader. It is more complicated than most leaders, I would say. I think people really underrate how difficult it is to play Vegapunk. Your idea is that you can rest Dawn to gain a life or to play a character on board, but you have a leader who cannot attack and only has 2 life, something that is not found with any other leader, so making a 2-life leader meta viable is very difficult. So I find playing Vegapunk is really, really fun and rewarding. The idea here is to go into purple. Purple is all about ramping and playing big bodies. Playstyle is Dawn ramp and huge finishers. Simply put, I think there's not really a better way to talk about purple. Purple decks are about ramping up to a higher Dawn count to cheat out massive bodies earlier than normal. Think Kaido, Luffy, or Roger, which Roger comes out in OP13, dropping big bombs with effects that swing the whole game. Like if you look at this purple Kaido over here, it's probably not one of the most played purple cards out there, but if you wanted to play an Animal Kingdom Pirates leader, it says on play Dawn -6, which you remove 6 Dawn and return them to your Dawn deck, but then you KO the entire board. It's a very interesting character to say the least, so you're ramping into big bodies with big effects that Dawn minus to get strong effects. You use cards like Bond Clay here, which says on play add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active to ramp up aggressively and basically just put the beat down on them. It's best for players who want to just play giant bodies and powerful finishers while outscaling your opponent. The earlier you get to 10 Dawn, usually the better, which doesn't fit every purple deck, but it definitely fits most. It'll definitely fit purple Monkey D. Luffy here, which is going to be the easiest purple leader to pick up in my opinion. You simply just add a card from the top of your life to your hand, and then if you have 0 or 3 or more Dawn, then add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck as active, consistently ramping you up aggressively into 10 Dawn, and this deck is still meta viable since OP05. Charlotte Pudding is going to be on the right. We're going to jump over the middle Monkey D. Luffy for a moment and talk about Charlotte Pudding. This is a great gateway leader to play both purple and yellow. If you're interested in either or both of the colors, it's simple to pick up, it's very cheap, and it's relatively easy to put down. I would say if you're looking for another beginner list, Charlotte Pudding is one to look into. Then you have Monkey D. Luffy here in the center. The only reason I skipped over this is because the playstyle is a little different. It's not about ramping into 10 Dawn, so if that's not your playstyle, it's good to look into Monkey D. Luffy and maybe some deck profiles on YouTube about Monkey D. Luffy in the center, as it's purple and black, more about cost addition and about returning Dawn to get strong effects. As it says, when 2 or more Dawn cards are returned to your Dawn deck from play, set up to 1 of your Dawn as active and 1 as rested from your Dawn deck. So you Dawn -2, then you get those 2 Dawn back, but you're getting strong abilities. You're filtering your hand with cards like Frankie, or you're becoming a 7,000 power leader with Monkey D. Luffy. So just know, Monkey D. Luffy here plays very different than most purple leaders, and it's a really fun, different build if that's more your playstyle. I try to give you versatility in all these leaders, but when we get to black, there's not much versatility. This is my personal least favorite color in the card game because sometimes it just feels bad to play against. And I mean that with all love to the card game. Every single color, everyone's going to have a least favorite color. Some people hate green right now, some people hate blue. Everyone has a least favorite card or color or some kind of issue like any card game. I'm just a very honest YouTuber. I put it down and I let you know. The idea here is about cost reduction into removal. Basically, as you see here, the Brook will KO a character with a 0 cost, and Laboon on the right will give a character -4 cost. You combo these two to remove a 5 cost character, and you're controlling your opponent's board. The idea is that you're reducing the cost, and you're efficiently removing bodies off the board. Leaders like Sakazuki and Lucci are thrive at systematically clearing boards and grinding opponents out. You literally go into the end game so long because I don't have to beat you right now is the idea with black. I can remove your board to where you can't beat me and then I can't beat you, but I don't need to beat you right now because you're losing resources and I'm gaining tempo. So I would say that's the best part about black. If you enjoy clearing the board and winning through attrition, black is going to be the color for you. And the best examples of black are probably going to be Lucci, Sakazuki, and Koala. Lucci is an OP7 leader that's great at removal. It already has cost reduction built into the leader, and it's a 5-life leader, giving you a lot of resources and stuff from your life, because in this game, life is a resource. So Lucci is consistently finding its pieces and uses graveyard recursion to consistently remove bodies on your opponent's board. Similar is Sakazuki, who as the blue card pool, which blue is very strong at bottom decks, so having cost reduction with bottom decking gets through anti-removal effects. As you'll see in the card game as you play more, a lot of anti-removal is being built, so black is not as strong, but having the blue card pool and anti-removal is very good. This leader was actually banned until about 2 or 3 weeks ago because it's just gotten to a point where it's not that strong, where it just dominates the meta. Then you have Black Yellow Koala. This is a black and yellow leader. I think yellow is a great early card game color to play. It's a great color for consistently having fun. So I always recommend it, and that's why I showed you the purple yellow pudding and why I'm showing you Black Yellow Koala. It's very different. The idea is not so much removal, it's more about the cost of your characters, buffing your leader effect to draw you cards, or controlling your opponent's life when they play characters through character effects or characters they cost of 8 or more, where now they have to take a life to their hand to get their own effects, basically adding an extra cost to your opponent when they want to use certain abilities. Koala is also more about hand control, and I find that to be very enjoyable. It's a different side of black that is really fun, and I would recommend for an early player, especially knowing that it's an OP12 leader that's easy to build on now. Well, now let's get into the next part where we talk more about counter. Counter is going to be very important when building your one-piece deck. When you're building your one-piece deck, I recommend that you play 8 to 16 bricks, which are cards with no counter, 10 to 12 2K counters, 20 to 30 1K counters, which are going to include, but are not limited to, 0 to 8 blockers, 0 to 4 searchers, and then you have 0 to 4 events, which do not count in that 1K counterpart, but it is important to know that events are part of the game. You also can play stages, but we don't cover stages in this video, as I feel like Bandai's still figuring out stages for themselves, because stages are like the most banned thing out there. So if you're asking me, I don't think you really cover stages because most decks don't run them, and if your deck does, you know they run it because either your stage is broken or it's not very good. So let's start off by talking about bricks. This is going to be what you build your deck around. Basically, the top end, the big bodies, the strong effects that you navigate through the game. Cards like this Nico Robin, which would be playing that Black Yellow Koala leader, trashing cards from your opponent's hand. It is a more mid-range ability and character because it's only a 6-cost character, but the idea is playing this early gives you a lot of tempo, ripping cards from your opponent's hand and giving you the resource advantage. So cards like this don't have counter because they have strong abilities. Basically, the strongest cards in your deck don't have counter. So these are the cards that you want to have searchable in your deck. You know, having this Nico Robin be Straw Hat Crew searchable or searchable through the 1-cost Koala, it's very, very strong, and consistently finding it is key. Now, you have characters like Zoro here, which has the ability to attack 3 times on one turn. Basically, if you're able to keep this on the board, you win the next turn. In most cases, not every case, but in a lot of cases, this Zoro is going to be very, very important to play down in the early or in the late game to just win you a match. Then you have cards like 10-cost Shanks here. It has Rush and then gives -1000 to all of your opponent's character as long as it's on the board. So just minusing that many characters is always going to consistently help you beat aggro decks, and rushing in aggressively is going to help you beat decks that really you just have to beat down early. So having these strong abilities, you need to have a consistent amount of them, which are cards that won't be able to be used as counter because you want to lay them on the board, so you won't be able to get out of large attacks using these characters. But you will need cards that are counter, and that's where we talk about 2Ks. 2Ks are really important for your deck as they are usually versatile options that can be played in certain matchups that just help with your game. Talk about Tashigi here, which helps as an anti-removal card. It's basically a 2K counter that can be used in other matches that says when one of your green characters other than Tashigi would be removed from the play by one of your opponent's effects, you may instead rest this character. So it basically forces your opponent to remove Tashigi or nothing at all. You just simply rest the card and you get so much advantage where your opponent can't remove your big bodies with cards like Red Rock, etc, etc. So it just gives you more tempo. Now, if your opponent doesn't run removal and you're not worried about it, then Tashigi is just a great 2K. It helps you get out of 6K attacks, simple, for just costing you one card. That's the whole reason we play this, because if we did not have 2K counters, every single attack would just be for 6K, because you could basically have to expend your whole hand just to get out of it, or you're cooked. You know, you have to keep that board control, so 2Ks are vital to get out of large attacks. You also have cards like Black Maria helping you get back to a ramp, to ramp back up in Dawn. So say if we did play that 10 cost Kaido, go -6 Dawn, well next turn we can play Black Maria and get back to an even Dawn count as our opponent. Then you have Sanji, which is just a 2-cost 7K attacker when you use its ability, and that's really aggressive. That's what you're trying to put down in red, so it's great to have an option. It also helps in matches that they're trying to starve you out of resources and not giving your life to use. It adds that life to your hand. So cards like this have versatility in many different matchups, and I 100% think you need to build 2Ks into your deck after you build your bricks. Obviously your bricks are going to be the first part that you really want to mess with, knowing what you actually have the option to play, because maybe you don't have all of the best bricks. Maybe you don't have the 6-cost Miko Robin at the moment, so you need to put something else. Well, you need to find something that does a strong effect in a similar area. So I recommend finding good options. But then you go into your 2Ks, and I think that's going to be the next part that you really want to cover when deck building, because you need to know what to play in certain matches. Then you have your 1K counters. This, as mentioned before, is going to be your blockers, your searchers, and your mid-game options. Mid-game meaning like cards like Karasu, which are normally from 4 to 7 cost. I mean, obviously they can be as low as 1 cost like the searchers, but usually you're getting the most value out of playing the 4 to 7 cost characters. Then you have blockers helping you get out of large attacks when you need it, basically acting as an additional life. A life that can actually be manipulated through effects like KO, bottom decking. I mean, basically your opponent can have an out to a blocker, but they can't really have the same out to your life. So I recommend playing these because cards like Nami here, draw 3 cards and place 2 cards at the top or bottom of your deck. They still have strong effects while also having the blocker ability. You also have the opportunity to play cheap blockers like 1 cost and 2 cost blockers that will get you out of large like 12K attacks for just the 1 to 2 Dawn, versus having to discard 4 or 5 cards from your hand just to get out of an attack. So if you're thinking about it, this 10-drop 12K Shanks does not have the ability to remove any characters, and our opponent after they play it will not have additional Dawn. So if we were to have a 2-cost blocker, that 2-cost blocker saves us from a very, very large 12K attack. Then you have searchers. Searchers are mainly for consistency, and we'll cover them in just a moment and on a deeper level, because there are different kinds of searchers. Personally, I always recommend having searchers for your top end, because finding your top end is some of the most important, and then searchers for your 2Ks. You want to basically have similar searchers or similar top end to your 2K counters. So if I'm playing this Sanji, I want to have a Straw Hat Crew searcher for both this Sanji and for other options at the top end of my deck. It really just helps with consistently, where you can consistently always find the top end of your deck that you want to play in the end game, and if you already have those in game options, then you probably don't have counter. So having them both be searchable by the same card is really, really important to keep consistency in a deck. That's why these kind of searchers are important. You have searchers here like the 1-drop Nami that looks at the top 5 for Straw Hat Crew. Spandom, which in black has a unique ability where it will actually trash the remaining cards. So it will like Spandom here, like we said, for example, we'll look at the top 3 cards, you grab a CP type card, and then trash the other 2 cards. That's because black uses the trash as a resource. So being able to consistently do that is very important, and find key pieces and search through your deck. So black uses it in a different way than cards like red. If you use it in red, green, all these other colors, you look at the top 5, then you put the rest at the bottom of the deck. Obviously, if you whiff on a search, it sucks to happen, so you need to make sure you're running a certain amount of X card. So like the Nami, for example, is Straw Hat Crew, you usually want to have at least 20 searchable targets. And remember, Nami cannot search Nami. That means any card named Nami, not just this card specifically. Any card named Nami is not searchable through Nami. So make sure that if this is the card you're playing, you have enough searchable targets, because say you only had 10 Straw Hat Crew, well, your odds are 1 in 5 cards out of a 50 card deck are going to be Straw Hat Crew searchable, and obviously we're not counting itself, so 10 other targets other than Nami. So, I mean, consistently using a searcher, it's probably not worth it at that point, and we will cover deck lists that don't play searchers in a moment to really help so that you know when to use these searchers. or what type of searcher you should be using. Again, make sure they search your top end and your 2Ks. I find those to be most important when deck building. Then you have searchers like Baby 5 over here. This is an activate main searcher, meaning you rest one Dawn additionally to actually the one Dawn that costs to play it. You rest an extra Dawn to look at the top 5 and grab X type. So in this version, it's Don Quixote Pirates, add it to your hand, then place the remaining at the bottom of the deck in any order. I find these activate main searchers to be very strong and consistent. It also is good for decks that don't want to take the pressure of your opponent's assault. I mean, basically, when you rest the character, which tapping the activate main, resting the Dawn for the activate main forces you to rest the character as well. Well, it forces your opponent to attack into that searcher, or you will continue to gain value drawing many cards throughout the game. So it acts as a pseudo blocker. Pseudo blocker meaning it's not a blocker, but if your opponent doesn't remove it, you're gaining value. So they want to remove it off the board as soon as possible. I consistently like finding these in decks that really like to not have pressure applied to them and need to play into the late game. Like Bonnie plays activate main searchers. Supernova green decks play activate main searchers. You have the new Slash Hiyori activate main searcher. There's a lot to play out here with these activate main searchers, and they really help take pressure off your life. Now, let's talk about events. Events come in many shapes and sizes. You have counter events like Gum Gum Giant. You have searcher events, which activate main on your turn specifically. Obviously, counter events activate on your opponent's turn. This will look for cards that you need to consistently find if you don't have a nice one-cost searcher to find them with a character. Obviously, the character is better because it has counter, but in some cases, you don't have those kind of searchers. Then you have the activate main KO events, which are more for board control and help remove big bodies. Then you have both, which is like Dead Man's Game here. We're not going to say demonic or a 9-sword style Ashura Dead Man's Game. We just call it Dead Man's Game here, so that's what we're going to call it, alright? Well, let's go back to the first one. Counter events are strong. It really depends on your leader if you're going to be playing counter events or not. Not every deck needs to play them, and certain colors have better counter events than others. The one-cost searcher events are important, but again, if you have a one-cost character option instead, even if it looks at less, it's just better because sometimes you don't have the extra Dawn to play an event like this in the late game, and sometimes you just want to chain 10-cost characters and no additional Dawn means you're just stuck with this brick in hand. So playing the character is better for the counter, but again, some decks do not have it, and if you do want to play both, you're more than welcome to, because consistency is sometimes key. Then, removal events here, like Honesty Impact, can be really important in your deck's game plan. It really depends. If you're a more aggro deck, you're usually not wanting to run these kind of counter or KO events, but it does help in certain matchups. Like, we'll look into a Silver Trailer deck, which runs a certain card that does help with removal, even though it is an aggro deck. It's good to have an option, because some cards you just can't answer, and so having some kind of answer is really going to be important. Cards like this, giving minus 4,000 power to one character and KOing one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less, gives you versatility. The ability to minus one character and KO another, or minus one character and KO that same character. I find cards like this to be very important when you play. Obviously, there's a lot of different versions of cards like this, like Red Rock, Gravity Blade, and so many more you'll learn as playing your games and playing more decks. But for now, just know it is something you can build into the deck if you like, or you don't. It's really up to you. Then you have cards like Dead Man's Game, which are more recently coming out. They have activate main abilities and counter abilities, meaning you have two options. So for the activate main, it says you may rest 3 of your Dawn cards. That is 3 plus the 1 cost in the top left, meaning 4 Dawn total. Rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters or Dawn cards. As you see, this is main. This means you activate this effect on your turn, but you have the ability to also use a counter. The counter on cards that have main and counter abilities usually only refer to your leader, as stated here. Up to one of your leaders gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. So just know that if you're using this to counter out of a character attack, you're playing incorrectly. Cards like this don't have the ability to counter out for characters, just the leader. Unlike Gum Gum Giant, which is able to go with a leader or character and draws you back cards. And I mean, really, honestly, if you guys want to play a good deck, play Gum Gum Giant decks. Any Straw Hat Crew purple deck, usually pretty good, because that card's pretty broken. That's not the point of the video. Anyways, these are the events that you can look for building into your deck. I recommend having some if you need, but not every deck needs. Another thing I forgot to mention is actually playing into your curve, building into your curve, and knowing the best curve. And what is curve? Well, it is the process of your Dawn count. You're going 2 Dawn into 4 Dawn into 6 Dawn into 8 Dawn into 10 Dawn. That is how you're curving out. So what you need to do is build your deck to play the most advantageous into the curve your deck enjoys most. So when we look at Blue Kuzan here, it loves the even curve, because on a 2 Dawn turn, you simply usually just play a Searcher, don't really do much. On a 4 Dawn turn, yes, you maybe play a Searcher or a Kuzan or a Borsellino blocker or something like that, but when you really want to get those top end targets earlier, you have the 6 Dawn option where you hit your Kuzan and 8 cost option to go into guard. If you were to go first in this deck, you would not hit those for 1 additional turn. So you need to know the best and most advantageous curve for the deck build, and keep that in mind as we cover these decks, as I forgot to mention curve completely in this process, and building into your curve is really important. Knowing the deck and how you're building it, knowing if you want to go first or second when you take on your matches, it's all very important as you play the One Piece card game. Some decks enjoy going first, like Purple Luffy here, and some decks like going second, like Kuzan. Most purple decks like to go first, some other decks like to go second. Just keep that in mind as you build your first deck. What are you building into, and what does your deck like to do? But let's look into some examples of decks that do or do not need certain cards. These lists will be examples that you can use, so you can specifically use these decks to build off of, or just get examples to show you how every leader is built different. More offensive leaders run less blockers, more defensive leaders run less counter, etc., etc. So when we look into Shanks, which is a defensive leader, as we talked about earlier, having minus 1000 every single turn, basically a free 1k counter, it is more defensive, so you don't need as much counter. You can play more top-end characters for the late game to really just outvalue your opponent. Decks like Rayleigh here are not going to run blocker. The deck just doesn't need it. Your idea is just to pound in your opponent's face, and if they don't control your board and KO it, which makes them act as pseudo blockers as mentioned earlier, it basically just allows you to continue to gain value. So Silver's Rayleigh, mainly just straight to the face, and you end the game as soon as possible. You don't need blockers. Then you have Green, which is going to be the Zoro leader we're going to cover, is more mid-range. You're going to have blockers, you'll have counter, you'll have events, you'll have a little bit of everything, and we threw Rosinante in there just to give you a deck list that's not so generic and gives you something different to show you that you can theory craft and build and actually win. That's the fun of the game. So we're going to start here with Zoro, which we're going to cover each of these individually, being 8 searchers, 11 events, 9 2k counters, 16 bricks, and 8 blockers. Here are the 8 searchers. We actually have an activate main searcher, being the left one, the Hiyori, and the Perona is a top 5 searcher for slash attribute and events. And as you can see, this is a very slash deck, as they all have swords in their hands. You may not know what slash is. It's the attribute that's in the top right of the card, as you can see here signified on the leader. That little slash icon means it's slash, and it's not really important until you start playing in OP12, which it's kind of gotten a little relevant, but it's not really the most important thing because nothing really matters except for slash at the moment. They haven't done much with strike or any of the other types, so don't worry about it too much. Just know that it is a searchable target in the deck. And our green events. Let's talk about the bricks. This deck is running 16 bricks. So 16 bricks is pretty good, I would say. I mean, you could be running more, and you could count the counter events as bricks because technically you need a Dawn active to use them, but I don't personally count them as bricks. I think they have counter, so they shouldn't be counted as bricks. So not the point, just wanted to at least mention that. But we're running 16 total bricks. There's really strong effects that activate main, there's strong characters that gain us tempo, and these are going to be our top end targets for the game. Yes, some of the options we want to play mid game, like Cavendish, they're not bricks, they have 1k counters, really strong effects, and that card's like $50. That's why I don't recommend playing green right now. Not the point. Anyways, I think you have to have a lot of bricks in a deck like this, or a mid-range of bricks, just because there's so much to play. I don't know. I like Zoro. I think it's good to keep in mind that 16 bricks is pretty consistent throughout the One Piece card game. You can run less or more depending on what your strategy is, but you do need to consistently find these cards to win the game. Obviously, there's also cards that just help you against certain matches, like Electrical Luna is going to be one of those teched in cards that we're going to talk about later. Well, we're not going to talk about Luna specifically, but it's teched in for certain matches to specifically help you, and basically just helps you gain tempo on the board, so you have to run those kind of bricks that save you from certain matches that you just instantly lose. We're running 11 events total, events being in the bottom right. That is a lot of events for a deck, but with them being searchable and having counter on most of them, or really strong effects that help you win games in certain matches, I consistently find them in Zoro, and I consistently find them helping me be a better player and win more games. So just having them is important because, again, certain ones you need for certain matchups, certain ones you need just to win the game in general. I find these to be very nice in Zoro. Now, we're not going to cover each one specifically, or we're not going to deep dive into every single list that we look into of their exact searchers and counters and such, but I'm going to give you a lot of examples. I don't know what happened here. We're going to ignore that. All right, I guess we're going to talk about the 8 blockers and the 9 2K counters. The 2K counters are going to be X-Drake, the Tashigi that we talked about earlier, and then the card next to Tashigi on its right. They're all great options. Most of them, 5 of them are searchable. The Tashigi is not searchable in the deck, but it's good to have some searchable 2Ks, again, for when you need them. Then we're running 8 blockers in the Koshiro and the Drakeo Mihawk. These are versatile and really help your leader into the late game, as once Zoro reaches the late game and your board's all removed because it attacks it aggressively, you kind of just lose. So the idea is to have a good amount of blockers, good amount of searchers, good amount of events, good amount of 2Ks, good amount of bricks. You have a good amount of everything in Zoro, and it's very versatile as seen in green. Then we're going to jump over to Shanks. Shanks is cooked because for some reason it doesn't have all the things we have in the thing. It was supposed to mention all the blockers and such. Anyways, I'll go over it myself. You have 4 searchers in the deck, being the Uta, which is going to search for red-haired pirates, which the 2K counters are searchable in this deck. 4 of them are out of the 10 that are total ran in the deck. The 4 Otama, the 2 Utas, and the 4 Hongos, the Hongos being searchable. You have, I mean, honestly, a great searchable top end in the 10 cost Shanks, which are going to be most of your bricks. You're going to have 5 of those. You have 4 Silvers Rayleigh, 2 of the Newgate, 4 of the 4 cost 6K Shanks blocker, and the 4 events and the 4 building snakes. Now, as you can see, a lot of that top end, or the big top end that you're looking for consistently, all has the red-haired pirates type, meaning that it's all searchable in the deck for the top end, and having 2K searchables is really important for winning deck lists like this. Then you have Silvers Rayleigh. Silvers Rayleigh runs 16 searchers, technically 20 if you count the 0 cost event Observation Hockey, but I was only counting characters. I put down 11 bricks, but I also did not count events, even the activate main events, which I should have for this leader. It runs a lot of bricks, because again, the idea is just to remove your opponent's board as soon as possible and use these events, 19 events total by the way, to just buff your power to your characters. We're only running 4 2Ks, which shows you that some decks just don't run many 2Ks. That was kind of the idea here. And we also run 0 blockers because we're not really worried about blocking out of an attack. We're more just trying to get value out of our attackers early and really just put on the pressure to our opponent. It basically just shows you, hey, some decks are ran like this, some decks are ran like this with missing text in the bottom, and some decks are ran like this, where, I mean, as you can see, the numbers are very different. So don't feel like you're stuck into one kind of building process. You can build in many different ways, as seen with this leader right here, Rosinante. This is kind of a meme leader. It's not really meta viable. I just keep mentioning it because it's a fun leader to play. It's very different, and I want to show you that off-meta leaders can be viable. This deck has 0 searchers because it plays a lot of pieces that don't really fit specifically in one kind of searchable target. There's Slash, there's Don Quixote Pirates, there's Minx, there's everything in here. So your top end's not searchable. I mean, basically none of your pieces are searchable in this deck consistently, so you don't play searchers because you would not consistently find one specific card because it's playing such a variety. We're running 3 events, which are all removal based events, which really help you against certain strategies, so you kind of need to have those. We're only running 8 2K counters, but we're running 11 blockers. 11 blockers is a lot for a deck because this is a very defensive deck that wants to play into the late game and starving out your opponent for all their resources. It has draw and filter built into certain cards to really help you, and we're running 17 total bricks because you have to find these bricks consistently, so we're playing a lot of them. And so, I mean, this leader is very different. It's really fun, and it just shows you that off-meta leaders can be meta viable and really fun to play. Now, what is meta and why is it important? Well, this is not going to be a deep dive into the meta itself, but it's going to explain that there are certain decks you need to build around. If you need to beat Zoro because you play it a lot at locals and you're having a hard time, there are certain cards you can play into your deck, and the same with Rayleigh and the same with Bonnie and other meta viable leaders. Yes, there is a lot more than this, so just keep that in mind. The meta is not just 3 leaders. That would be very boring. There's actually a large variety of leaders, and I would say we're in one of the best metas if you want a chance of playing many different leaders. A lot of different leaders are just really good. There's not one leader that's just 99% better than every other leader. I think you have a good opportunity with any single leader you want to play. Now, how do we build against the meta? Well, there's certain cards that really help with anti-synergy to certain leader effects. So to start, let's read the Zoro leader. Times 3 Dawn, activate main once per turn. So times 3 Dawn meaning 3 Dawn attached to the leader, making it into an 8k attacker. If this leader battles your opponent's character during this turn, set this leader as active. Then, this leader cannot attack your opponent's characters with a base cost of 7 or less during this turn. So, the idea is that they're getting 2 8k attacks. Well, how do you handle something like that in a situation like this without ditching 2 cards? 2 2k counters to make your leader into a 9k and your character into a 9k. That's really difficult to do over and over and over again. Well, you tech in cards like Nakarabura Arrow for yellow and Hell's Judgment for purple. Yes, there are other cards that do similar effects, so just keep in mind that these are just specific ones for specific colors, but there's other options to beat the Zoro deck. Nakarabura Arrow basically says, if you have 2 or less life cards, give up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters minus 3,000 for this turn. And Hell's Judgment gives 2 characters minus 3,000 for this turn. So that minus 3,000 is way different than the counter events we looked at earlier that give you plus 3,000 for the battle. This is minus 3,000 for the turn. So it makes those 2 8k attacks only into 2 5k attacks. So that's 1 card out of your hand to turn these attacks into much smaller attacks. It's really good and consistently helps in a matchup like this. So if you're finding issues with your yellow deck into Zoro, well, you can play a card like this. If you're finding it in purple, you can play a card like this. It shows you that there's basically just easier ways to beat certain decks or certain leaders you can play to beat certain decks. So I find playing these cards really help me in Zoro matchups, and other leaders have cards that beat them, like Dead Man's Game into Bonnie or having removal into Rayleigh. Any of those really help, so you kind of need to build around certain leaders you may run into once you start playing at competitive tournaments or just playing against friends who just have the same deck and beat you every single time. When I started playing, I would play Bonnie and I would just decimate my friend, so he finally was just like, I need a deck that beats this deck, and that's where we kind of went forward to build him a new deck so that he could finally start beating me. And that was fun, and that's kind of the fun of deck building, is finding out ways to beat the deck that you are having the hardest time with, and that's what always keeps you on your toes. Well, you can also build leaders against the meta. This is Zoro, obviously, who has a good matchup into a lot of leaders, but some leaders just beat Zoro, and that's going to be Eustace Captain Kidd here, Enel, or Silver's Rayleigh. Enel specifically if you're playing the Star strategy, as good players know, but if you're new to the game, you probably don't know that. Anyways, the idea here is just play leaders that maybe just beat the other leader. That's why I gave that little story about me and my friend. Sometimes you just have to play a leader that beats their leader, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, sometimes you have to build decks you weren't really expecting to build, but usually you can find a deck in the color that you like and you can build that deck, or you can build your deck into beating the deck. So you can either build against it with putting certain cards in the deck you already like to play, or you can build new decks that specifically beat the meta. Some people just like playing off meta, and this is a great way to do so. So basically, that's how you build against the meta. You build the right leaders or the right tech option and cards into your deck that you consistently find to win the matches that are difficult. So it's the same thing here with Lucci. Lucci is a removal based deck, so you can slot in cards like Tashigi or Sabo in your green or blue decks, and there's other options in other colors just to help you against anti-removal synergies to help you not lose value on the board. If you're also building against the meta and you know what you're going to play, it's easy to tech into certain matches and know what your opponent's going to play. If you know on 5 Dawn your opponent's going to play Cavendish, you know you want to have removal ready to KO that card, so when you're getting to draw your first hand, you're looking for removal. If you don't find it, you mulligan into a new hand. It's a great way to help to remove bodies off the board that you may understand that your opponent's going to play. It basically just lets you think one step ahead of your opponent by knowing the meta, and then you also can play that matchup enough online to then beat that match. So I just want you to know the best thing is to know the meta, the things you're playing against, and that will help you be the best with the deck that you like to build. If you know what you're going against, you know how to beat that, then you're going to win 9 times out of 10. So anyways, that was how to build a one-piece deck for dummies, for beginners, for noobs, whatever you want to call yourself. We're cool with it. We love you. We're happy to have you here at the One Piece family. And if you're ever looking for motivation or help finding One Piece deck profiles, I recommend One Piece Top Decks. It's not a sponsor or anything of the channel. It's just what I consistently use to find topping deck lists that I may be looking for certain leaders. So this is the best way to get inspiration to build your first deck, or to steal a deck profile from someone who's already winning. You're more than welcome to do that in the One Piece card game, and it helps you become a better player. If you ever want to learn more about deck building or anything at all, please drop your questions in the comments down below. I think there's probably a few things I didn't touch on specifically, so if there's anything I missed, maybe I didn't talk about curve, which maybe was really important. This was the simplest of videos. It was really just to help you learn how to build a better deck or to build your first deck ever in the One Piece card game. The idea is not to help you build competitive decks or be the best player in the world. The idea is to get started, because you'll never be a pirate if you never jump on the ship. You gotta jump in the barrel like Monkey D. Luffy and run through some games online, against friends, at locals, whatever you have to do. You just need to build your first deck and do it. I've met so many amazing people who just started getting into the One Piece card game, and I want to expand that. I want more people to find this card game and to enjoy it. So I really appreciate you watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video and it could help you out to learn your first deck, and we'll do deeper dives if there's things that I'm missing or whatever we need to do to help you become a better player, as we help many others as well on the channel here. So whatever I can do, let me know in the comments down below, and let's have the community help those in need. Make sure to leave nice comments below for people who may be building their first deck, and make sure to help and support those who may not support us. We're always throwing smiles and having love here on the channel. That's what it's all about. Let's have a good time. Let's play some One Piece. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.